All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dynasty Pros Weekend Warm Up. I'm your host, Brennan Booth. This is my co host, Mike Lindberg, or as I like to say, Mike Grindberg, because he's constantly grinding. We're here to give you the warm up for the weekend. We're getting you ready for Sunday's action, Monday's action. We're giving you injury news, player news, starts and sits. We're doing streamers, bunch of other stuff. So hang with us and let's get going. What do you got for us this week, Mike?
Well, hearing rumors, Taylor Swift will only be out with Travis Kelce on weeks he scores a touchdown. Wonder if it's a Super Bowl hangover or this Taylor Swift hoopla is actually affecting this Chiefs team. They are a step off to start the year, but I'm actually driving down to Minneapolis this weekend to see the Chiefs and Vikings play head to head. So I'm excited to see that. Maybe I'll catch a glimpse of Taylor Swift in the stands. You never know.
Well, I'm here right now with her. We've been at MetLife Stadium partying since Sunday night. I got Ryan with me. Let me ask her real quick. Hey, Tay Tay, is it true that you're only going to come out with the Chiefs on days that Kelsey scores touchdowns? She couldn't hear me. It's too loud in here. So I would just say start Kelsey in all your lineups all the time anyway. So doesn't matter what Tay Tay's doing.
I guess not, eh? Yeah. Well, who cares anyway? Bye weeks are starting up. We have 4 teams on buys this week. I know. Chargers, Seahawks, Browns, and Buccaneers. So what's your draft strategy when dealing with buys? Do you pay a lot of attention to them when drafting?
I pay zero attention to buys when I'm drafting. The only exception was in the fishbowl this year. I tried to take 2 quarterbacks that weren't going to be on buys at the same time. But yeah, other than that, I draft for production through the season, and then I adjust for bye weeks. So if I have to pick somebody up off the waiver wire, I do that, and that's what the starts and streams are for. Or the stream, that's what my streaming is for. But yeah, I don't ever pay attention to bye weeks when I draft.
Yeah. Maybe like my backup quarterback in like a 1 quarterback league if you're actually drafting one at the end. Not many people do, but if you do, that would be the only time I'd actually pay attention to them. So, a lot of there's a myth about bye weeks and drafting. I'm not on that train. So
no.
Opportune time to get a buy this early for some of these teams. Actually, there are some banged up key players that could use the rest. So there are some notable players on buys this week. We got Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Lockett, JSN. And then we got Watson, Ford, Cooper, and more. Mayfield, White, Godwin, and Evans. So quite a long list of guys that we're going to have to replace, 4 teams this week. So not a good way to start if you're a 0-4 team and you have to deal with these buys now.
Except that luckily, if you're an Eckler owner, a Deshaun Watson owner, or a Mike Evans owner, you've already made an adjustment based on their injuries. So that it gives them a week to heal. They're going to be good to go next week, and that might be advantageous, but not for the most part. For the most part, it sucks to be looking at having to replace Metcalf's production, or I spent all this fab on Jerome Ford because I was short on running backs. Now he's out, and I need to I'm back in the same position I was. So let's go Jerick McKinnon or whatever. That kind of sucks, but. Yeah, give a couple of them an extra week to heal, and they're good.
But the good thing about this is you're not the only one. I'm sure there's another, the guy that you're playing or the person that you're playing in your league probably has one of these guys on a bye too, so it kind of evens out. Cooper Kupp and his mysterious hamstring injury Rumor has it he isn't even 90% yet. Team remains hopeful he plays. Hearing rumors he will be eased back in. I highly doubt that. If Cooper Kupp is playing, he will get his regular workload. The return is near. I'm thinking Puka will still be a big part of this offense when Kupp returns. I see maybe Van Jefferson will lose the most playing time, followed by Tutu Atwell, maybe a little bit. But I like Tutu. He can open up the field down the line there. So what do you think? Who do you think is going to be the biggest regressor when Kupp comes back?
Unfortunately, at this point, it looks like Jefferson is going to take the biggest hit. I still own him more than anybody else. Sadly, I'm just like he's just sitting there on my bench, and he's totally droppable. If you have Van Jefferson on your roster, he's absolutely droppable. But I'm just going to give it another week or two before Kupp comes back, and then I'll finally like make a decision on him. But it's sad what the potential was there for Van Jefferson to have a huge breakout year, and then the reports from camp and from Sean McVay's mouth were that Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell were not going to be challenging Jefferson for anything, and then suddenly Jefferson disappears. So you're riding with Tutu, you're riding with Puka, regardless of what's happening. Atwell, we'll get into that a little bit later in the starts and sits section of the program, but I mean he's getting 9 targets a week. So if his production goes down, it's not going to go down so significantly that he won't still be producing. So,
okay, well, I agree with all that. I mean, it is a shame about the Jefferson thing because all signs were pointing in that direction. Just obviously with these two young guys emerging, it's just not in the cards at this stage. So it wasn't a bad call. And the stock that you put into it anyway. You weren't investing a whole lot. You were getting him in you're getting him in the 18th round, and it was worth that dart throw. So everybody is doing that. So that's not a bad call whatsoever.
Right.
So I recently traded Puka Nacua for Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty. So you can tell that I am excited that Jonathan Taylor is returning to the Colts after his 4-game stint on the pup with an ankle injury. The spoiled relationship between the Colts and Taylor makes me wonder if it's going to just be the Colts showcasing Taylor for trade suitors prior to the trade deadline at the end of the month. Whatever the case, it's great to see Taylor back into lineups this week. Hopefully he plays. What do you think? What do you think the odds are of him getting back in?
I would be reserved with him just because it takes a little bit of time to get back. We saw that from Josh Jacobs. Taylor's returning from an injury, plus he missed 4 weeks. So I would be hesitant to count on him for RB1 production right out of the gate. Although, if Zach Moss can do it, I'm sure Jonathan Taylor can do it. The situation with the Colts is he's part of the team. His agent and contract issue, that was a Jim Irsay thing. So I think as soon as he gets back with his teammates and with Steichen, it's wheels up, all systems go for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. If it takes him a game or two to get back into the swing of things, I'm still gonna throw him in there as a flex because he's still a probably better option than what I was using prior to this. You had him on your bench anyway, so fly for him. If he gets me 13 PPR points, I love that. It's just the optimism that he's back in there now, and he's my RB3 in my dynasty league now, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Yeah. So new injuries. We have Javonte Williams had a hip flexor strain, usually lingering injury. Look for him to miss a game or two. It was undrafted rookie Jaleel McLaughlin, not Samaj P. Ryan, that made good with his opportunities, rushing 7 times for 72 yards and adding an additional 32 yards on 3 receptions and a TD. A great showing. There was buzz all offseason about McLaughlin, and I mentioned on this show a couple of weeks ago about how the Broncos needed to get him involved, him and Mims as well. I am a big fan of McLaughlin, and I think he'll carve out a bigger role with his opportunity, even when Javonte Williams comes back. Williams returned to practice today in limited fashion, making his return a little more optimistic. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't see him playing in this one, but he might.
you got to watch the news. If he's playing, that drops McLaughlin back down into the unstartable territory. Um, I love McLaughlin and I love his story. He's a tiny little guy, UDFA, worked his butt off and earned himself a place on the team on the 53 man. I wrote a playerprofiler.com article about him, and I love the story. Whether he's useful or not at this point totally depends on the health of Javonte Williams. If Javonte Williams is out, start McLaughlin. But if Williams is going to play, then I don't think he's worth it.
I do think he's shown enough that he is going to start carving out a role. Like he's already playing 15% of the snaps right now before that injury, and showing what he's seen. I don't think Sean Payton's in bed with anybody right now in that backfield. So, like with what we've seen, that explosiveness, he could turn into that like 1-2 punch down the line where Javonte Williams does all that little grunt work, and then you're going to see Jaleel, pop in with like those short passing routes and getting them into space, kind of like that David Achane, kind of role. But we'll see what happens. I like what I see, and there's optimism there. And if he can, get in on a game where Javonte is out, I could see him proving himself a bit.
Yeah, I hope so because it's such a good story.
It is, UDFA, there's a couple of them here entering the league, and James Robinson was the first one that to note, but now they're becoming more common, and the way the running back landscape is, it may be even more common coming through. So T. Higgins, rib fracture. T. Higgins is looking like he's going to miss a week or two with his rib. Not looking like it's going to be the Bengals' year this year. Is there drama in Cincy? Jamar Chase's post-game interview raised a couple eyebrows. I'm staying away from any Bengal players for the foreseeable future. The Bengals are on a bye next week and may opt to rest Higgins with his broken rib. Higgins hasn't practiced to start the week yet. I think it's more of like a pain management thing. I think he misses this one and comes back after the bye, but we shall see. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm out on Higgins, in on Chase. I think Chase is going to get right, and I don't think the Bengals are going to compete this year the way that they have the last couple of years, making it to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship. I don't think they're quite at that level. You need a lot of things to work in your favor. Number one being injuries, and they've caught the injury bug early on, and it doesn't look great. Mixon's a starter, Burrow's a starter, Chase is a starter. After that, it kind of gets kind of messy, and I wouldn't be counting on Higgins for a couple weeks anyway.
And people are getting in on the Tyler Boyd as like a sleeper. I'm not in on him right now, honestly. Like I've seen and I get what he's done in the past in that role. He can be a top 10 guy. Yes, he's only 28 years old. He's not old, but it's not the same Joe Burrow that was passing him the ball when Higgins was out or Jamar Chase was out in the past. It's a totally different. Yeah, it's a totally different Joe Burrow. So I'm not ready to invest in that offense whatsoever. I mean, Mixon is a have to start because you got him. And he has a decent matchup this week. Jamar Chase, obviously, he can make something out of nothing, and he'll get targeted hyperly. But that's about it for me. Like I'm not gonna. Yeah, like you said, I'm not starting anybody else in that lineup. That's for sure.
But Jones is definitely a dynasty buy at the moment.
Totally. He is. Yeah, absolutely. So Justin Herbert, left hand injury, doesn't sound serious. He will have the bye week to further improve his situation. Luckily for the QB1, it's on his non-throwing hand, so nothing to really get into there. He's got a bye week to recover. Mike Evans, hamstring, another player that got injured right before his bye. Not his first rodeo when we were talking about hamstring injuries. It's a shame because Mike Evans was looking like he was finally starting to break out after 10 plus years in the league.
Finally.
God. Well, hopefully Baker Mayfield will have his number one receiver back after the bye in week 5.
Yeah,
Devontae
hopefully,
Adams.
because I have him in the fishbowl.
I hope, yeah, well, he's been awesome. Like Mike Williams has been so good. Devontae Adams, shoulder, another AC joint injury, sat out practice today. I'm thinking he should play or will do whatever it takes to play against his former team, the Green Bay Packers, in his first revenge game on Monday night. I'm sure you've had that game penciled on your calendar, being a Raiders fan.
What?
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, wearing a Raiders jersey right now.
Jersey right now, exactly. So he obviously plays in this one. I mean,
Yeah,
is there a chance he misses it?
there's nothing a cortisone shot can't cure for the night. He's fine.
So there was a lot of skepticism about Kenny Pickett playing earlier when he suffered that knee injury, potential MCL sprain. But you know what? It's not that severe. Steelers are already in a world of hurt. Now, if they lose their starting quarterback, you can pretty much kiss this year goodbye. This could be the break the fantasy football world needs for the Steelers to finally move on from Matt Canada and his one-dimensional offense. However, it looks like Pickett will play through his knee injury using a brace. He practiced in limited fashion Wednesday, but fully practiced today, so I expect him to play. Don't expect much, however, as this team is looking like a mess right now.
Yeah, they need to get some kind of fix-it key in there and just like let's go. And you have the injuries to Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson, and they've kind of sunk the team. Not a good time in Pittsburgh right now.
You know what? I blame it all on that offensive line. Like it is bad. And Najee Harris isn't getting any room to run. He's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage on so many of his carries. Like, and he's actually been okay with the production, considering if you look at where he was last year and the year before, as well he's produced. But you just can't get behind them. Not with that O line, and they're not letting Pickett have any time. He's being pressured so many times. So yeah, it's not looking good. And then to add to that, Freiermuth, hamstring, expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks, could be back after the Steelers bye in week 6. Another disaster situation in Pittsburgh. With so much optimism heading into this year for the Steelers, the way the season has started is a big stinger for the Steelers and their faithful.
Yep.
It's a tough one. And it's tough for, to see that even as a Raider fan, it's still hard to see a team, do that when there's so much hope going into the season.
Yeah, especially since I'm a heavy Pickens investor and a heavy Freiermuth investor and a heavy Deontay Johnson investor.
Yeah, I mean that was one of my biggest worries was with Pickens is the Matt Canada offense and that offensive line. You could be the best talent in the world, and if you don't have that going for you, you're just not going to succeed in this league.
Yeah, they need to figure something out.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, hip contusion. I'm not worried about him. He should be good to go.
He's good.
Jimmy G, concussion, still in the final stages of protocol. Look for Aiden O'Connell to once again get the nod in prime time this week, though. If Jimmy G can't go, you're the Raider expert. What's the lowdown there in Las Vegas? What's happening with Jimmy?
He's going through the motions, but Aiden O'Connell should be the starter there, and he looked better in his first career game than Jimmy G has looked with all his experience this whole season. So, I as a fan, just put AOC in there and give him the reins, and Jimmy can sit on the side with the clipboard. That's fine with me. They're not winning anything anyway, so why go out there and risk yourself? Just sit as much as you can, get right, and then start a game or two here and there.
So what if? Okay, I'm going to put this thought out there to you. What if Aiden O'Connell goes out there on Monday night and beats the Green Bay Packers? Next week, is there a quarterback controversy in Las Vegas?
I think there's, if you look at it from the fan side of things, there is a quarterback controversy already. And
yeah.
It basically stems from the fact that Josh McDaniels is the coach, and we have to watch him make the decisions that he makes, and we have to question everything because this team is a crap show and doesn't win. Um, so when you're looking at it from a fan standpoint, what would you rather see? Would you rather see, hey, what is the potential there with this fourth round quarterback that we took, or what's, because we know what we're getting with Jimmy G and Brian Hoyer. So as an organization, why don't you go with the unknown? If we're not going to win anyway, let's see what the kid can do. And for a coach like Josh McDaniels, I was really surprised that he started O'Connell last week, because he seems like the traditional guy that would just go with it, the guy that he knows, Brian Hoyer, if Jimmy G's out, and he didn't. And I think he didn't like that. I think he bowed to the crowd, he bowed to the roar, and I don't think he liked that at all. So what does he do? He makes a bad play call on first and goal from the 3-yard line, which winds up in a turnover and game over. And then he throws the kid under the bus. Like, he wouldn't have done that if O'Connell was his guy. I think he started O'Connell because he was under pressure. So there is a quarterback controversy there, because O'Connell should be the starter. And I don't think McDaniels wants any part of doing that. He wants to go with his guys.
And you've seen that before, where a guy like Shanahan's known to do that, put their guy out to dry just to prove their point, like Trey Lance situation, like, let's put this guy out to dry. He's not my guy, so I'm going to put him out there. But what if he
Right.
produces? Then what happens, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the catch-22 there.
And that was another thing. When Lance went out there, he had 15 scripted plays that were all terrible for his talent and his skill set. Like, they were all negative plays for his skill set. He wasn't given a chance. And then Shanahan said, "Oh, well, he's not the guy," and they cut him or traded him away. And
Yeah.
it was like, wait a minute, you had an agenda here. You weren't looking out for the best interest of your player. You were looking out for the best interest of your ego and your stake in the whole game. And that's what McDaniels is doing, and it's tragic for the whole organization. They took a real step back when they decided to not go with Bisaccia and get rid of Carr, go with McDaniels and then get rid of Carr. It was a bad move. They took a playoff team and made them a top 5 draft pick team. It's
Yeah.
garbage.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get you any more worked up over your Raiders, so let's
Yeah, I
move
don't
on
want to get into it.
yeah, let's move on to their division rival and Austin Eckler's ankle. Eckler has another week to nurse his injured ankle, as the Chargers have a much-needed bye to heal their players, so not much more to report there. Saquon Barkley's ankle, though, limited in practice Wednesday and Thursday. Look for him to log a full practice tomorrow for me to feel confident that he'll play. If Barkley does play, you have to play him no matter what. The Giants need him back badly. Everything revolves around Barkley and that offense. I said it on this podcast before after the week 1. The Giants need Barkley heavily involved in order for Daniel Jones to be successful. They did that in week 2, and both Jones and Barkley had their best game so far. My Scott Fishbowl team is hopeful it gets his missing piece back this week. So hopefully Barkley goes. They need him bad. Daniel Jones needs him bad, and I know it looks bad right now for the Giants, but last year that team looked a lot better, and they're not far off that. I just think they need to get Barkley healthy. They need to get that O-line working a bit better for them, and things will work out a bit more.
Yeah, let's hope Barkley can get back in. Even if he's limited, we got to play him.
Yep, absolutely. Zay Jones practiced in limited fashion to start the week. Jones has slid into the number 3 role now behind Ridley and Kurt after starting alongside Ridley in week 1. Kirk has stormed the scene lately and will not be giving up that role anytime soon. I don't think Zay Jones is a good play this week, even if he is a go. So we'll see what happens. That's the early game on Sunday morning in London. So I'm eager to see that one. It's nice to have a long day of football. I'll be up early on Sunday morning watching football from my hotel room, then head down to the tailgating at the Vikings US Bank Stadium to see the Chiefs play. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, those London games start for me at 6:30 a.m. and I couldn't be happier. Did you get to watch the Toy Story show, the Toy Story production?
No, you know what? I was it's hockey season right now here for the kiddo, so things are early mornings at this stage. Yeah, we're up in Canada here, and you know, we're about a month away from snow being on the ground already, so it's pretty crazy.
Hey, guess what? It was 90 today here, and it's gonna hit 100 on Saturday. It's fucking October.
Yeah, well, you know what, Brandon? Stop telling me about that, and let's get into more of you bragging into maybe some of your Studley and Dudley calls here.
I'll trade weather with you any day. All right, I'm gonna throw my chest out here. We're doing the Studleys and Dudleys. This is where we recap one or two of our studs and duds from last week's starts and sits. I'm throwing my chest out for my start call last week on Justin Fields. What a Studley! 335 yards passing, led all quarterbacks, 4 touchdowns, matched only by Josh Allen, and he finished as quarterback 2 or 3, depending on what your league scoring is, despite, and here's the kicker, 25 yards and 0 touchdowns rushing. He wasn't running with the ball last week. He was slinging it, and he winds up as the QB 2 or 3. And I told you to start him, so I hope you listened.
Great job. That was an excellent call. You know, we told you last week that our calls are going to get better as the season goes on. So, great call, Brendan. You had a really good start to last week, and you're going to create that momentum headed into this week. So, for me, I had not such a bold Studley call as Brendan did last week with the Fields, but however, all of my sits were Studley calls last week. I had Mixon, and he finished as the RB30. I had Rachaad White finishing as the RB21, and I had Dak Prescott, who finished as the QB19, well outside of their expectations headed into the week. So I Studley called those ones.
Nailed him. And Fields is having a great night tonight. He's having a Fields day. All right.
Love it.
My big Dudley flub of the week was I recommended you stream the Bengals. The Bengals defense did so well against the Eagles, and then they laid an absolute egg against the Titans. They got to Tannehill 3 times when they sacked Jalen Hurts 6 the week before. They gave up 400 yards and a season-high 27 points. They even gave up a halfback pass for a touchdown to Derrick Henry. And Wiley, at first I thought it was a fat man touchdown, and then I saw Wiley and I was like, oh yeah, he's a tight end. They finished as the defense 15 in one of my leagues and 23 in another that I started him in. Definitely not a startable week. There is a silver lining though. They outscored the Niners defense. So if you listen to me, you won that matchup if your opponent had the Niners. And if the Niners were your defense, it's because you drafted them and you deserve to be punished because they got outscored by the lowly Bengals last week. So that was my Dudley. It was starting Cincinnati's defense.
I don't feel so bad, man. Like, I mean, your Dudley call, my Dudley call, my Dudley call was, he outrushed his receptions. So Tank Dell was my Dudley call, who had 2 rushes for, I think, 12 yards and 1 reception for 13 yards. So I'm sorry out there, whoever started Tank Dell on my accord. I apologize. Him and Nico Collins seem to rotate which one decides to be the twinkle of Stroud's eye. So still a strong play moving forward, but expect this type of flip-flop between Nico Collins and Tank Dell moving forward.
Spoiler alert. All right.
Let's get into our starts and sits. Let's do it.
Starts and sits. All right. So this week, my first start is going to be Tutu Atwell. So he had a down week against Indy last week, but he faces the Eagles this week. They're among the friendliest defenses to throw against, and the game's going to be one of the higher-paced games of the week. Both offenses are pretty prolific. Atwell has seen at least 8 targets in every game this season. He has 9 targets in each of the last 3 games. The matchup is a good one. He's definitely a huge part of the Rams' air game. Again, I don't think that goes away if Coop comes back into the fold. I think he might lose a target or 2, but I mean, he's running with Puka Nacua right now, who's averaging 10 to 15 targets a week. So there's plenty to go around, and Tutu is going to be in the conversation every week. So go ahead and start him with impunity this week.
All right, man. And that's pretty bold, and like especially if Cup returns. So, he's putting his money where his mouth is. So I like that call, Brendan. You got some balls. Big balls, man. Okay, so Christian Kirk versus the Bills is my first start. Since week 2, Christian Kirk has averaged 11 targets and 83 yards per game. Zay Jones missed last week and could be returning in week 5 when the Jags face the red hot Bills in London early Sunday morning. Ridley came out of the gate red hot in week 1, but since then, Kirk has been the main target in the Jaguar offense. Look for Lawrence to continue to pepper his main target when the Bills and Jaguars play this weekend. This game could easily get out of hand early or could become a shootout, making it very good possibility for a lot of passing in this one. Kirk will continue his hot streak and, hopefully get some good points in this one versus the Bills.
Yeah. If and another spoiler alert for the sits section. If anything is positive for the Jaguars against this Bills defense, it's going to be Christian Kirk and maybe Travis Etienne. But all right, my next start is going to be Breece Hall. Now, I've had Breece Hall in my starts and sits almost every week this season, and I can never seem to get it right.
Yeah, it's like one start, one sit. Yeah.
Right. So he's seemingly been on this list for me every week. In week 3, I said start him, and I got burned. Last week, I said sit him, and he finishes a low RB2 flex option. I think he was RB21 or 23 or something, right there with Jerome Ford, who I said was a start. So they basically canceled each other out. This week, we got the word from Robert Saleh that the training wheels are off of Breece Hall. He's no longer going to see a pitch count, a snap count. He faces a Denver team that just gave up over 100 yards and 4 receptions to Khalil Herbert at a 5.72 yards per carry clip. Now, we know that Breece Hall has outgained Khalil Herbert on a per-touch basis throughout his career. So I think that Breece Hall is going to have a big game. We know Breece's talent, and this seems to be the week that he's fully back. Robert Saleh is counting on it, and he's gonna put him out there. So put Breece Hall back into your lineup. After last week, I said sit him and wait for him to break out. This is going to be that breakout. So let's not be a week late. Let's be on time.
Yeah, I mean, Breece Hall, this is going to be intriguing. It's going to be an intriguing situation to watch because if he does get that full workload, I'm going to be heavily looking at how that knee is responding to it. And, if he is fully healthy, he should smash. Okay. So if he's not smashing in this, opportunity that he has this weekend, we're going to have to start thinking of some red flags popping up for the remainder of the season. Because this is, if he's healthy and it's a smash game, he should smash. So the pressure's on Breece Hall. Let's see him rock.
If the pitch count is off, he should be good for 15 to 20 carries and 4 or 5 targets. So that's exactly what you want with Breece Hall.
Perfect. Let's see it. I'm looking forward to it because I got some Breece Hall shares that need to be fulfilled. Yeah. Isaiah Pacheco is my next start versus the Vikings. Pacheco finally looked healthy in week 4 and planted himself as the clear-cut number 1 running back for the Chiefs in week 4, playing a season-high 60% of the snaps. To add to this, Clyde Edwards-Helaire played a season-low 9% of snaps. So in a slow-paced game against the Jets in week 4, the Chiefs made Pacheco a featured piece in this game, racking up 158 all-purpose yards, a touchdown on 23 touches. Pacheco set career highs in yardage and touches in that game. Now the Chiefs are up against the Vikings in Minneapolis. Both teams have disappointed offensively compared to their preseason expectations. I'm looking for this one to become a shootout with the highest point total of the week. The Vikings should be playing catch up in the latter stages of this game, so Pacheco should be used to run the clock down in the second half. The Vikings are the middle of the pack defending the run, giving up an average of 111 yards per game. They did give up that huge game to DeAndre Swift in week 2. So there clearly are some vulnerable spots that can be exposed on that defense. So look for Pacheco to build off his week 4 game and, produce for fantasy managers in week 5. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, and from the hat that you're wearing right now and the fact that you're going to be at that game, I fully expect you to be monitoring Pacheco's fantasy points. And if he's not getting the ball, I want you down on that sideline in Andy Reid's ear, and I want to see that on television. You yelling at him, "Get Pacheco the ball, eh?" Like, I want to see it. Let's go.
So funny story. I was at Chiefs practice this summer in St. Joseph at the stadium there where they practiced their preseason, and Andy Reid was pulling off in the parking lot in a golf cart, and I was walking to my truck, and I was like, I pointed out to a couple fans. I'm like, "That's Andy Reid," and he waved to us, and the fans were like, "He waved to us because of you," and I was like, "That's right." So I've got an in with Andy Reid. So if there's anything, I'll yell at him, and he'll make that happen for us.
Well, if you have an in with Andy Reid, then I expect you on the phone with him and say, "Get Deneric Prince the ball." Okay.
All right, man. Okay.
All right. My next
What's
start.
next?
Josh Dobbs.
Okay. Love it.
Would you believe me if I told you that Josh Dobbs has 2 top 10 finishes in the last 3 weeks? You probably wouldn't. And one of those was against Dallas. He finished well in he was outside of the top 10 against Dallas, but he finished well in Superflex territory. So in the last 3 weeks, he's been absolutely startable. Last week against the Niners, Dobbs threw 41 passes and rushed the ball 12 times. That's 53 plays where Dobbs was the focus of the offense and the ball started in his hands. He has a favorable matchup against the Bengals this week. The Bengals are average against the pass, and they allow their opponents the 5th most rushing yards. And we know Dobbs can run the RPO beautifully. We saw that in the first play of the first when they played the Cowboys, that RPO where he saw Parsons coming off the edge and he kept the ball instead of handing it to Connor, and Parsons went, "What just happened?" And Dobbs is 15 yards past him. I see big games from Dobbs and James Conner this week, so start Dobbs.
Yeah, like where did he come from? Maybe some guys just take a bit longer to develop and maybe need their chance. Like, do you think even Kyler Murray comes back and is a huge upgrade from Dobbs at this point? I don't know.
think that Kyler Murray comes back and is still Kyler Murray, which is an upgrade over most people in fantasy. But what they wanted from Dobbs was to give them time for Kyler Murray to fully get back. I'm sure that Kyler Murray could play right now, but he's not going to be at his best. So give him 2-3 more weeks. Let Dobbs take care of everything. You can keep the same offensive system in place because Dobbs basically does what Kyler Murray does. So it just gives them that extra cushion to let Kyler Murray be fully right. And then we'll see what this regime has in store for Kyler. If they were to go to him right away and say, "You're the guy," then they're probably not moving off of him. But they have no investment in him. They're not the guys that brought him in. They have no investment in him, and they could very easily showcase him for a couple weeks and then trade him off. Not that many teams would need him, but they could still do that. But as long as Dobbs is getting the starts, I think Dobbs is absolutely fantasy viable right now.
Absolutely. And, the things that, that you mentioned that I highlighted out of that conversation that you just said was they played the Cowboys and the 49ers. So, he produced playing both those teams. I don't see his schedule getting any harder moving forward. So those matchups are only going to get juicier. He's proven that he can do it. He's made guys like Zach Ertz, not just a liable streamer, but a starting tight end. So, like he's made James Conner, back to where he should have been. And, guys like Michael Wilson, what a game he had. So, let's keep that momentum going and let's get those Arizona Cardinals fantasy players more relevant. So that's what I love.
Especially
good call on that. Yeah. So Garrett Wilson is my last start of the week. Garrett Wilson finally came out of the woodwork in week 4 against the Chiefs, earning 14 targets in that game. Finally, Zach Wilson woke up. a little bit here and targeted his best offensive player. Garrett Wilson ended the game with 9 catches for only 60 yards, but it does lead me to believe that there is a big turnaround coming for Garrett Wilson, and that buy low window will be closing rapidly. Zach Wilson actually looked serviceable last week, and the Jets now have their best matchup they will probably have all year, going up against the Denver Broncos that have given up monster games this year to. Okay, just give me a second. You're gonna have to cut. We might have to cut this one short, but Jacoby Myers, Terry McLaurin, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet. And they've only played 4 games. So those are monster games to all those players, just to name a few. So Garrett Wilson should smash in this week in the perfect matchup.
Absolutely. I think the Jets are going to have a good game this week. And in my 5 quarterback league, I went and picked up Zach Wilson. So let's hope. All right. If you need to bounce, you can bounce. I got the notes. I can finish it, but hopefully you can stay because right now we're doing the sits. So these are the guys I'm sitting, and this is an allusion to your Christian Kirk start. I'm sitting Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has not been the top 10 quarterback that we expected him to be. He's struggled the last 3 weeks and has barely been in the Superflex conversation. Now you're thinking, but quarterback 16 and 19 finishes, those are fine in Superflex. You're right, they are. But this week he faces the Buffalo Bills. I should have just led with that. I should have just said, Lawrence
totally.
against the Bills, sit him. Find an alternative for T-Law this week. In this space, a couple weeks ago, I said, unless you have an elite, meaning top 5 quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, one of those guys, you're sitting your quarterback against the Buffalo Bills. And what happened to Tua? The Bills shut him down. So same thing is going to happen to Trevor. Sit Trevor Lawrence.
Agreed. Anybody going up the Bills is just it's not worth it at this stage. Brock Purdy is my first sit. He's playing the Cowboys. Brock Purdy has done a good job managing this Kyle Shanahan's offense. Heck, he's even done a decent job filling in for fantasy managers as a weekly streamer. He is currently the quarterback 11 in 6-point quarterback leagues with 4 buys looming. You may be tempted to put this top 12 quarterback in your lineup. Problem is they are playing the Dallas Cowboys, who are, a top-ranked defense in the NFL. 2 very good defenses going head-to-head makes me think this will be a lower-scoring game with lots of running and clock controlling. It would surprise me if Purdy threw more than 2 TDs in this one. If you need a replacement for either Herbert, Geno, or Watson, I'd be looking at playing guys like Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and even, like Russell Wilson over Purdy in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think what this game is going to be is the 49ers controlling the ball, getting up early, relying on Christian McCaffrey, and the Cowboys trying to work their way back into it. I don't see a 350-yard, 3-touchdown game from Purdy. You're probably going to get one of those from those other guys. I would absolutely start Stroud or Richardson over him, and maybe even Russell Wilson. Yeah. I totally agree.
I mean, I think he might, get 1 touchdown passing and then, get lucky and, McCaffrey, gets a screenplay and takes it 40 yards to the house and he gets another touchdown that way or something like that. That's the only way I see him being fantasy relevant at that stage.
He's not going to have a bad game by any means. It's just going to be a very low production game.
Agreed. Okay, who do you got next?
My next sit is Tank Dell. Tank was the waiver wire darling last week after he finished as wide receiver 7 against the Jaguars. He slipped last week, and that wasn't great. But you kind of have to ask yourself, which was the outlier, the wide receiver 7 game or the wide receiver 82 game? 84. I'm leaning the wide receiver 84 was more of the status quo. This week, Dell goes against the Falcons. The only team that's more stingy against the pass than the Falcons is the Bills. So Stroud should be fine. He and Nico should hook up quite often. There might even be a scenario where Dell takes away some of Nico's targets. But in a game like this, you want to move away from the non-primary targets, and Dell is not the primary target. Kind of similar to the Brock Purdy situation. You want to move away from the low production areas and move into the high production areas. And with Nico Collins being that primary target for CJ Stroud, he's going to be the guy that Stroud looks to, and it's not going to be Dell. So especially if the pass game is limited.
I like that call. I like the Nico bump. The other thing that I like there is I'm hoping for a Dameon Pierce game here. I think
Yes.
this is a good spot for him, and a lot of my fantasy teams are relying on him. Like I said last week, I've been upset with him, so hopefully this could be a week he gets in again and puts some good points on the board. So
Absolutely.
my next sit is Najee Harris versus the Ravens. Najee should get into the top 20 in this one, but are you really happy with that after the draft capital it cost you to get him on your fantasy team? With even an even split snaps with Jaylen Warren in week 4, Warren is emerging as the more reliable Steelers running back so far in 2023. Warren has scored more PPR points in 4 games. Warren has proven pass catching that clearly looks like he has more bursts than Najee. So potentially without Johnson, Freiermuth, I cannot see this ending well for the Steelers and Najee this week. The Ravens rank 7th in the league against the run, only giving up 92 yards per game. Najee's 4.3 yards per carry isn't going to cut it to get the Steelers or fantasy managers far in this one. Najee isn't even a flex worthy for me this week in most formats. I am low on Najee, and I would even start Jaylen Warren over him if push came to shove.
But at this point, even though they're getting a fairly even touch share, you have to start Warren over Najee because Warren is outscoring Najee. I was totally out on Najee. I didn't draft him. I don't have any shares in Najee. I have a lot of Jaylen Warren, and I got into plenty of conversations over the offseason about how Najee Harris's efficiency metrics are not the same as Jaylen Warren's. And I will give it to Najee that he is improving this year upon his statistics from his yards per carry and his he's ranked pretty high in the broken tackles. Like he's running better this year than he has, and he was hurt, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is he's still being outscored by Warren, and they're pretty much splitting their touches. So if you have both of them, Warren is the guy in your lineup, unless you're fine with 8-9 points from both of them, then you start both. But if it's one or the other, you got to go with Warren. You can't start Najee at this point.
And I could see it be, a quarter into the game and, the Ravens are up by 2 touchdowns, and then it pretty much makes that running game obsolete at that point, like
Yeah.
it's a tough matchup. And, I know it's a divisional game and Najee can step up in those types of situations, but he hasn't shown anything to me this year yet. So we'll see what happens.
And the way the Ravens score, if they're up by 2 touchdowns on anybody, the other team's pretty sunk.
Yeah, totally.
All right. My last sit, and this one is going to raise some eyebrows because it's a high draft capital guy. People invested highly in this guy, and I just don't see it this week. Tony Pollard. I know he's a guy. Like he's a guy. You spent a 2nd round pick on him or a 3rd round pick on him, but I don't like this game script against the 49ers. I think the Niners will be playing with the lead. Dallas will be forced to throw early. Only the Panthers and the Saints have given up less on the ground than the 49ers. And against that Niners defense that completely shut down James Conner, I don't see a path forward for Tony Pollard this week. It's going to be a lot of Jake Ferguson. It's going to be a lot of CeeDee Lamb and Dak running for his life too. I don't see it for Pollard. He's going to be pressed into blocking mode for a lot of it. I see Rico Dowdle probably having a similar game to Pollard. They're going to be scrambling to figure out what to do against this Niners defense. It should be a pretty low scoring game. And if I had Pollard, he wouldn't be in any starting lineups this week.
You know what, man? Like, your balls are big this week, buddy. Like I have to say, like
I can show them to you. You want to see? No.
yeah, no, I'm good, I'm good. But seriously though, like you're putting it all on the line, and you know what? That's what it takes to make it, man. So way to go, buddy. Like we're gonna see if it turns out, but that's being bold. Those are the decisions that that will put you out on the line, and good on you for it.
I
My
don't mind
next
flying too close to the sun.
Exactly. I mean, that's what some of those calls is what's gonna win you a championship in a week, but we'll see what happens because it could lose you at the same time. So,
Right.
sitting Pollard could be a ballsy one, but it also could be, like the difference between winning something. So yeah, like let's see what happens. I'm interested to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I'll be watching for
My
sure.
Yeah. Miles Sanders versus the Lions is my last sit. Chuba Hubbard outsnapped and outrushed Sanders in week 4. Both touched the ball 16 times, but Hubbard was the more efficient runner with his workload, going 54 yards versus the 32 that Sanders did. Sanders is also still banged up and has slowed down by his groin so far in 2023. His situation doesn't get any better this week, as they are going up against the toughest defense against the run in the Detroit Lions. They are only allowing 66 yards per game on the ground. The Lions should go up early in this one, forcing the Panthers to run the ball to get off the run. Sorry. I'm expecting another Chuba Hubbard, Terrence Marshall, and Adam Thielen game for the Panthers. I would not be putting Sanders into my lineup until he shows me he can produce well in a game. Doesn't look like that will be happening until his groin fully heals. So that's my call this week.
Yeah, I have Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard in the European Fantasy Football charity event, and it's a best ball. So whoever spikes, they're going to get into that lineup. Everywhere else, I have Hubbard, and like I like his pass catching ability. And Sanders has been banged up and hasn't gotten the production. Andy Dalton's not playing, so you're relying on Bryce Young again, and it's and the Lions are legit, so it does not look good for the Panthers this week, especially Bryce Young and Miles Sanders. So I wouldn't be starting either of those guys. I
Okay.
do want to give a shout out to my Scott Fishbowl Buena Vista division, where I started Sam Howell and Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel with a TD and Sam Howell getting them back in the game with 2 touchdown throws, and he rushed for a 2-point conversion. All right, so on to the streamers. This is the portion of the show where we give you streaming calls for defenses and tight ends, because that's what you should do in redraft, is avoid taking those guys early in the drafts. Take them in the last couple rounds if you have to, and just play matchups, and it works. So this week, my defense that I'm focusing on, I'm picking up the Saints everywhere I can. The Saints are stout against the run. They're going to force Mac Jones to beat them, which he can't do. We know that. So I'm picking them up absolutely everywhere. The Saints are going to go and play Bill Belichick, who wants to slow the ball down, give it to Ramondre. Mac Jones isn't going to beat anybody. So the Saints are good against the run. They're not going to give up much to Ramondre or Zeke Elliott. Maybe a goal line touchdown to Zeke or something. But I look for them to score a lot of defensive points this week.
Yeah, totally. And who knows? Mac Jones could be pulled early. He might not even start that game. Like there is, a controversy there. Maybe like Bill Belichick. You never know what he could do in that situation. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that call. So my defense streamer, I'm going with the 28th ranked defense in the league, the Miami Dolphins. Hoping to see them creep into the top 10 this week in a juicy matchup against the New York Giants. The Giants' offensive line put one of the worst displays of protecting their quarterback that I have ever seen. If you watch that game, there is no way you could blame Jones for that one. Guys were getting past the O-line untouched. The Dolphins will be pissed after losing so easily to their rivals, the Buffalo Bills. Look for them to get at Daniel Jones early and often.
Yeah. Jones is going to finish as like the RB 14 this week. So yeah, I like Miami's defense. I streamed them a few weeks ago, and they did me right, and they're going to do it again this week too. So all right,
I
tight ends.
I I love I absolutely love your tight end call here.
Okay.
So
Well,
let's
this is
let
piggybacking off last week when I said start either of the Washington Commanders tight ends, whoever plays, and Logan Thomas got into the game and actually absolutely put up a stinker. But I'm watching the Thursday night football game right now. Slingin' Sammy is getting the team back into it, and a lot of his targets are going to Logan Thomas. So Logan Thomas is legit. If he's on your waivers after this week, go ahead and pick him up because he's going to be a big part of the Commanders' offense moving forward. But this week, because we're going to be going up on YouTube after Thursday night football, so I couldn't go for Logan Thomas again. I'm going with Tyler Conklin. He's averaging about 6 targets per game in the last 3 weeks. The Jets play the Broncos, who are a favorable matchup for tight ends. Conklin is proving that he can be reliable as a safety valve for Zach Wilson, and I see him having a good week. Breece Hall will put the Jets in lots of third and short situations, and then Conklin is going to see plenty of looks right off the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field. One thing to watch with Zach Wilson is one of the things that Robert Saleh said that they did with their game plan last week is instead of running on first down and throwing on second down, which is predictable and allows the defense to kind of adjust to that and pin their ears back and go after Wilson, they were throwing on first down so that he could go off first look, he could find his first target and hit him because the defense wasn't really being aggressive. They were, in kind of an even run pass defense. So look for that to happen a lot this week. Zach Wilson throwing the ball without having to think about it, handing the ball off to Breece Hall on second down, or giving him a swing pass or whatever. And then in all those third and short situations, Conklin doing little tiny like routes and just racking up those targets and those PPR points, and hopefully finding the end zone at least once. One of the things that we have to find with a streaming tight end is a guy that will get one touchdown. And when you have your top 20 tight ends every week in PPR points coming from Dylan Parham and Wiley from Tennessee and all of these guys that Donald Parham, sorry, all of these guys that don't get any looks except for one touchdown, and then they completely steal all of the play from these guys who are tight ends getting 6 targets a game. It's really frustrating to see. You just want your guy to get that one touchdown, and I think that Conklin can manage that. Even though Uzomah had the touchdown last week, I think Conklin can find the end zone this week.
It's the targets per game that you're seeing there too, and that's what you can kind of run a hope on a streaming tight end. That's what I look
Right.
for, right? And he'll get those. So my streaming tight end, and I'm going to go round 2 on this, is Dalton Kincaid. I was close to smashing that Kincaid streamer last week. He did get 5 targets for 4 catches last week, but the yardage wasn't great. And he was so close to a TD, but Stephon Diggs swooped in and literally sniped him to steal a touchdown. Kincaid was outsnapped Dawson Knox was outsnapped by Dawson Knox the first 3 weeks and emerged past him in week 4, seeing 79% route participation. And now Knox has been limited in practice all week, so he's a little banged up. I think that this is the week we finally see Kincaid score a touchdown against the Jaguars, who give up the 5th most points to tight ends. If the Falcons tight ends can go off on the Jaguars, I'm pretty sure Kincaid can so as well. So
Yeah.
hoping to see that now. I was close last week. I just maybe thought, it could have happened against the Dolphins, but I think this week is the one where he emerges.
Yeah, I was triggered earlier today by Kincaid's numbers to start the year. And it's only 4 weeks into the season, and he's a rookie tight end and all that stuff. But you have guys like Ferguson and Musgrave and Laporta that are kind of barometers for what a rookie tight end can do now, running out of the big slot. And Kincaid was supposed to be the poster child for all of that. And the Bills haven't been using him the way that they said they would. And I don't know if that's a matter of his snap share. I don't know if that's Allen not looking for him or Diggs just being so good that he's just taking, all the looks away from everybody because he's always open. I don't know what the situation is. All I know is that everybody was super high on Dalton Kincaid going into the season, and he just has not lived up to that. But there has to be some fire where all that smoke was, and maybe this is the week that all of that gets lit and he goes off. So I would take a chance. We're streaming tight ends. I mean, what are we asking for? If Dalton Kincaid is available, and I saw him dropped in one of my leagues today, if he's there for you to insert into your lineup, take a shot.
Yeah, it's so desolate in this tight end, landscape. So that's about it for us this week. Thanks again to everyone for joining us for the weekend warm-up for the Dynasty Pros Football Network. Thanks to everyone for the support. This show is growing, and we truly, truly appreciate all the support. Please continue to like and share. It means the world to us. Brendan, you want to remind everyone where they can find you and all your content?
Absolutely, but not before I say, like the video, share it, hit the bell so that you get notified when we get put up on YouTube, and comment. We need to get that algorithm going. We need all the eyes that we can get on our content. You can find my writing at dynastyprosfootball.com. You can look under the Dynasty Dilemmas, and you can click on my author link thing, and it'll show all my articles. Find me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. It's right there on the screen. The link to my Substack newsletter, where I do more starts and sits every week than just the ones here, that's in my Twitter bio. And then you can find my videos at Big Boned FFB on YouTube. Come and join us for the Monday Meltdown every Monday, live streaming on YouTube, watching the Monday Night Football games. I go live at 5 o'clock. We'll be streaming as Peyton and Eli are chopping it up, and I hope to have lots of guests every week. Do a little fantasy draft of cool things like beers and whiskeys and fast food and whatnot, and I want all the people that can watch to watch. So that's where you can find me.
Thanks for that, man. You can find me at the Twitter box at FFCanuck99, and all my written content at thedynastypros.com. So we appreciate you all. We hope that you have a great weekend. I'll be thinking of everybody while I'm sitting at the game in Minneapolis, watching the Chiefs spike down on the Vikings, I hope. So enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Mike Greinberg, and I hope you all win.